All right, hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Sexual Mastery. Today I'm going to be talking about orgasm versus ejaculation. For men, are these the same thing or can they be separated? So I'll be going into that. Just to tell you guys a little bit about myself, those of you who are new to me, my work, I'm Jonathan White. I'm here to help you master your sexual energy so you can master your ideal life. I've helped hundreds of men all over the world tap into the power of their sexual energy and use practices such as Qigong, yoga, meditation as holistic methods for working with the sexual energy harmoniously and using that as a power to tap into their higher forces, basically. So, as I mentioned today, I'm going to be talking about orgasm versus ejaculation. So, for men, orgasm and ejaculation are two different processes. Orgasm and ejaculation are not the same thing, and they can be separated. How do I stop having wet dreams while you're awake? Are you talking about ejaculating? I don't understand what wet dreams while you're awake means, so you'll have to elaborate on that. But anyways, for men, orgasm and ejaculation are two different things, and they can be separated with some practice. So ejaculation is simply the spasming of the prostate. As a man's aroused, what happens is the prostate is all this fluid is building up in the prostate as a man's experiencing sexual stimulation. And when this builds up to a maximum point, the prostate starts contracting rhythmically and pumping out that semen fluid. And this is an ejaculation. Orgasm is simply it's a pulsation, really, and it's a state that is different than your normal state of being, right? And this can be many things. You can have orgasms, obviously, in your genitals. We're mostly familiar with that, but you can also have orgasms in your brain, in your organs, and other areas of your body. And so orgasm actually starts just a bit before ejaculation happens. And with some skill, you can learn to separate these two processes. So I'm going to go back into that. There's many different types of orgasm that men can have. So the thing is, as men, we're sort of programmed to have this very limited experience of sex and sexuality. Most men in this world now learn about sex through pornography, through porn. And this was the case for me myself. And this teaches us this very limited view of sexuality. And we associate porn with this very limited experience, this purely in the genitals, and because it's like, okay, well, I saw this guy, having sex in this way, and he ends with an ejaculation. That means that this is like the pinnacle of sex, so I have to ejaculate every time I have sex as well. So we get programmed into this very limited experience where sex takes place completely in the penis, and so this limits us as men because sex can be such a much more holistic experience. You can experience the sexual energy throughout your entire body. You can have orgasms, full body orgasms, but because typically men, we contract ourselves, we shut ourselves down, and so we only experience sexual pleasure in our genitals, and we're separated from the rest of our being. Being Alpha just asked me, does high sexual energy increase facial attraction and magnetic nature? It definitely makes you magnetic. I've talked about this a lot in some of my videos, how semen retention seems to make a man much more attractive. What's the best way for me to have an orgasm by myself? Whatever way brings you harmony and balance and doesn't drain your energy. So getting back into the topic here, men can experience many different types of orgasm. So as I said before, most men are programmed to experience this very limited experience of this explosive ejaculatory orgasm. Orgasm, it's kind of an elusive thing for men. We're very often chasing it, and the orgasm most men experience is, it's about 5 to 10 seconds, and this is intense experience of shooting out your life force. This is basically what you're doing when you're ejaculating. You're shooting out your life force, and it's very intense. But then it's over, and you feel drained. Your energy drops off, and you're depleted. So what if instead of orgasm being this process where we shoot our energy out of our body, what if we can instead bring that energy internally, recycle it internally? We have internal orgasms that way. We do not ejaculate, and we can experience very, very powerful intense orgasms internally. So the thing is, as I said before, most men are very shut down and they're unable to feel sexual pleasure in anywhere in their body but their genitals. So the first key to experiencing higher sexual experience is opening up the body. As I said, we tend to be very locked down in the body. So when you begin to open pathways of the body through, I use Qigong, I use yoga, I use meditation, I teach men these practices as well, breath work, because now we can build these pathways through the body, reopen these pathways. We all have these energy channels in our body, but as we experience traumas in life, as we experience, the intensity of living on this planet, we tend to shut ourselves down from the intensity of life. And so what we want to do is open these channels back up and create this pathway. Now we have somewhere for that sexual energy to move, for that arousal to move. And now we can contain that aroused energy instead of just shooting it out of the penis. We can open up parts of the body, move through, and bring this orgasmic energy to the entire body, to the brain, to the organs, to the glands. And as it builds up, it gets intense, more and more intense, more and more orgasmic. And it's a different experience of orgasm. And it can be very subtle in the beginning, but with training and developing your sensitivity, it becomes very intense and, in my opinion, much superior than to the ejaculatory orgasm, which is basically just a quick sneeze out of the genitals, and then you're done. You're fatigued and you're tired. So someone asked a question here. What happens to the semen when we have an orgasm but do not ejaculate? Nothing. It stays exactly where it's at. Ideally, when you do it properly, you don't even get to the point of the prostate spasming, because so there's different methods of non-ejaculatory orgasms. Basically, there's the physical blocking where you like squeeze the pelvic floor really tightly, or you use your fingers to actually close the tube. And this technique, in my opinion, is very a bit crude. It's not the highest technique, and so this causes this genital orgasm, so the spasming in the prostate, but you don't ejaculate because you've clenched your pelvic floor so tightly that fluid has nowhere to move. But often what happens with these methods is some of the semen, it moves into the bladder, and so you urinate the semen out and you still lose it. So in my opinion, these techniques are not they're not the highest form of techniques. I'll just say they're a great place to start with, but ultimately, we can get it much more refined than that. Love the sneeze analogy. Hey, thanks, brother. It's true though. It's like a sneeze. Just the pressure builds up and then whew, and it's gone, right? When you accidentally, how can you actually not ejaculate during orgasm? Through exercises of the genital area and visualization. Yeah, I'll get into that in just a second here. Another question, is it better to do practices like yoga and Qigong in the morning or before bed? Either way is great. I start my day with my Qigong practice and meditation practice. I also do a little bit of yoga and other practices before bed. So really, whenever you have time is a great time to practice. But it's great to start your day with some sort of practice that charges you up, gets you in the flow for the day. And it's also great to have a practice to sort of wind down the evening, clear out any stress from the day as well. So let's see, where am I at here? Right. So now going into more of the how do we start separating the orgasm from ejaculation? So the methods I prefer, the methods that I use and have had great success with is basically what you do is, as I mentioned before, most men, the sexual energy builds up, this arousal builds up, and it needs somewhere to go because there's all this pressure. So it explodes out the penis because that's the pathway that you've trained yourself for it to move in for, maybe many years or decades, whatever. So there's this pathway for that energy to move in, which is out your penis and in ejaculation. So what you want to do is start to open these new pathways in the body, as I mentioned before. The main pathway, the first pathway that I work with and teach men to work with is the microcosmic orbit. And this is the main energy channels in the body. It starts at the perineum, travels up the spine, to the crown of the head. You touch the tongue to the roof of the mouth. It travels down the front of the body and the perineum. So it's this loop throughout the body, and it's the essence of all of the energy channels in the body. So there's hundreds of thousands of acupuncture meridians in the body, but the microcosmic orbit it's the essence of all of them. It's the prime yin and yang channel, and these are what's they're two of what's known as the 8 extraordinary vessels in Chinese medicine. So they're these deep reservoirs of energy, like these deep canals, and they feed all of the rest of the acupuncture meridians in the body. So by opening this channel, you're able to regulate the energy of the entire body. And so that's the first step, is open this channel, and then you learn to move the sexual energy through it. And this starts to move that sexual energy through your entire body. And of course, this takes some skill, it takes some training, but that's why it's called sexual kung fu. Kung fu is that which requires daily practice, basically. It's a discipline. So sexual kung fu is a discipline of sexual energy, of the sexual arts. And so what you do is you learn to, as this arousal builds up in the genitals, through breathing, through certain muscular contractions, you move it. Instead of out the penis, you breathe it up the spine, up to the crown of the head, to the brain, and you also bring it back down the front of the body. So you move it in this loop around the body so that during sex, you're becoming more and more aroused, but this energy is constantly moving through your body. How to open that pathway? Through meditation and Qigong is very effective. I have a couple of videos on my YouTube channel. I have a meditation practice to open the microcosmic orbit, and also a Qigong form as well. And in my 6-week course, Multi-Orgasmic Man, I teach a very, very powerful method of opening the orbit. That is the most powerful method I've ever learned, and an entire Qigong form to open the orbit as well. So there's some different options available for you. Masturbation is very addictive. I need this good knowledge. Yes, yes. Yeah, it's all about changing your habits and learning to use your sexual energy to build yourself with and to drive your life with, instead of just releasing this sexual tension as soon as it builds up, which most men do. Bought one of your training courses, also increasing your retention. Great to hear it, brother. How has the course been for you? Yes, so basically, as I said, open the energy channels, breathe the energy through it during sex, and it's really quite simple. It's the gaining that body awareness that can be difficult for men, but that's why I use practices such as Qigong. It's a very effective practice at helping you to feel the energy flowing in your body and move that energy. How long time needed for practice? How long does it take to be able to do the orgasm without ejaculation? I'm not going to throw out a time frame because it's different for every man. It depends how ingrained you are into your sexual habits, and also how willing you are to work with those habits and put in the time, the training to develop new habits. I post about non-ejaculating 9 times. Is that in one day? So that's an old Taoist sort of parable. Just like how, when a man ejaculates once without ejaculating, his energy is strengthened 2 times, his other things. So it doesn't have to be in one day. It's just saying that basically the moral of the story is that the more times you're able to have sex and retaining your semen, doing these practices to draw that sexual energy through your body, the more vitality you have, because when you have sex with a partner, you're both bonding and you're generating tremendous amounts of energy. Sexual energy is so powerful, and when you're with a partner, it's just growing and growing and building, and you're exchanging it. And normally what happens during sex is a man ejaculates and he sort of short circuits, so all this energy is built up, just shoots out of him. But when you don't ejaculate, you store that energy in your body and you hold on to that, so it just builds and builds with every time you have sex, and it's incredibly powerful. Oh, here's a question. When you do the 3 bandhas and eventually hold your breath for 90 seconds, you do this practice sitting down or standing up. So I believe you're talking about my video on Kundalini activation. So don't do it standing up generally, because this is a very powerful practice. It generates a lot of energy. You might get lightheaded and pass out. So definitely do this one sitting down, the Kundalini breath. I have a video on how to activate your Kundalini on my YouTube channel. Your girlfriend asked. Well, you got some training to do, right? Let's see. Jay Cutler. No, I don't know who Jay Cutler is, but I'll check him out. Okay, here's a question. What level of importance would I place on getting some sort of physical intimacy not only penetrative sex, even kissing while on this path. Yeah, I think physical intimacy is very important. I'm not exactly sure what the context of this question is, but yeah, I think it's important to be, if you're with a partner, to not just make sex this like totally physical act where you're like trying to get energy from them, but it's this deep connection, it's this deep sharing of your energies. And the more you're able to connect from the heart, connect from your entire, your entire being, the more powerful it will be and the better results you'll have. Is my third eye open? Yes, it's completely open, and I can see all the future, all the past, and I mean, I don't know. The whole thing with third eye opening is kind of speculative. I used to be really, really focused on, opening my third eye, opening my crown, and like, edging out my body into heaven. But honestly, I'm more concerned about being grounded and being balanced in this world, because that's really the key to being successful and living a happy life. So I don't focus too much on whether or not my third eye is open right now or not. 23, you never thought you would learn about this in your life. Really life-changing. Awesome. Awesome, brother. Spiritual ties or creating sexual energetic cords. I mean, when you have sex with someone, you are creating an energetic cord, whether you're aware of it or not. Every person we connect with, on a sexual level, it's the deepest bond you can have with someone. And so I always say, don't have sex with someone that you wouldn't want to become, because that's what happens. You exchange your deepest karma. You exchange both the positive aspects of yourself, but also the negative aspects. So just, yeah, be careful about who you connect with and use discernment. The microcosmic orbit has helped. I feel like I'm about to orgasm. Do I let the energy happen and try to circulate it? You can stop, like if you're having sex, whatever, and you're getting close to the edge, you can stop for a bit and just breathe and let that energy move until you feel like you've calmed down. So if that's a practical thing for you to do, then yeah, try to stop for a bit and just let that energy calm down a bit and breathe it around the orbit. All right, here's another question. Hey, dude, I'm doing nofap and semen retention, but I'm seeing a female tonight and I'll probably explode. What should I do? Nofap is easy, but the retention with intercourse is killer, right? That's the whole thing, is like, I talk about this a lot, how, nofap, it's great, but it's really just the tip of the iceberg. If you really want sexual mastery, you've got to learn to control your sexual energy, because a lot of guys, they do nofap and then they get into a relationship and they just go back to ejaculating every day during sex, whatever, and it's still an energy loss. So I think the highest training you can do is learn to have sexual activity, have non-ejaculatory orgasms. So advice as to what you should do. In the beginning, the most important thing to do is just focus on your breathing during sex. Deep, slow belly breaths. And this gives you something to focus on, helps you keep your awareness inside, because often during sex, it's so stimulating, it's so exciting. We're looking at our partner, how attractive they are to us, and we're just like sending all this energy out into the world. So when you focus on breathing, deep, calm belly breaths, this helps you anchor your awareness inside and helps you to stay cool. So that's always the first thing I teach people. So experiment with that. And this, it takes training. It definitely takes training. Okay, so I want to tell you guys a little bit about an experience I've had with a very powerful non-ejaculatory orgasm. So I was with my partner, and we'd been having sex for probably about 20 or 30 minutes, and the whole time I had been drawing my energy throughout my energy channels, doing these practices that I've been talking about. And there's this point where it just, I was looking into her eyes, and we were just deeply eye gazing, and it was like we were just all of a sudden melding together, like we were just becoming one. It was like I felt like I was being pulled into her, but in a different way than like when you feel like you have to ejaculate. It was different. It felt like that the feeling you have in your genitals when you're about to ejaculate, it felt like that, but it was in my entire body, and my head, my crown was like pulsing, and it was like all of a sudden my awareness, just like a shockwave, just expanded, and I felt like I was out in the stars, like out in space, just floating around, and there was just this incredible feeling of connection and like universal oneness. So it was just like this crazy powerful cosmic orgasm. And that's what happens when you do this kind of work. Because most men, I talk about a lot, the average man lasts about 4 to 6 minutes during sex. This is not long enough to get into a very highly orgasmic state. You want to last at least 20 minutes. And then you start really building the energy. Then the energy really builds, and you build this high orgasmic charge of energy. And that's when you start getting to these full body states. And when you're moving the energy throughout your whole body, it's just building and building. It's so powerful, guys. Like, it's quite a different experience than the 10-second ejaculation where, your energy's gone right away. Anyways, so that was one of my experience about this. I'm going to take some more questions. Is it better to practice Qigong in the morning, afternoon, or the evening? If you could only pick one time a day. I do most of my practice in the morning. So personally, if I was to only do it, had to pick one time a day to do it, yes, I would do it in the morning. But it's great any time of day. Whenever you have the time, it's good. And I talked about this a little bit ago, but basically it's like when you do your practice in the morning, you get charged up for the day, you get into a nice flow and the rest of your day flows much better. But the benefit to doing is in the evening is if you work like a 9-to-5 job or something, then you come home and you do your practice, and that clears out any stress from the day and helps you to really enjoy yourself. And sometimes it's good to do a little bit of practice before going to bed, either way, just to clear yourself out. And then your sleep is more efficient, because usually our sleep, sometimes the first couple of hours or more, we're just processing things from the day. We're just processing stress. So when you have a practice that you can clear stress out before you go to sleep, your sleep is way more efficient. And you wake up, you may only need to sleep 6 hours and you wake up feeling supercharged and fresh. So that's the benefit to practicing in the evening, basically. The microcosmic orbit. Oh, I already answered this one. What's my thought on Kegels? Yeah, I think they're great. I think it's important to have a strong pelvic floor. A lot of men have very weak pelvic floors, and the benefit to strengthening your pelvic floor is it actually tonifies. The pelvic floor helps to keep your organs in place. And when you have a weak pelvic floor, the organs start to sag and push down, and one of the causes of aging. And so basically having a strong pelvic floor keeps you young. That's why I do weightlifting, if you've seen my videos on Instagram, because it's an intense way to really, really have a strong pelvic floor. And the benefit of that is it brings the sexual hormones to the rest of the body to keep you young. Okay, I've been able to do semen retention for years, but once orgasm has been achieved, I'm done. I figured it shouldn't stop me continuing, but I'm spent. What can I do? So what you're saying is that you're able to retain your semen for a long time, but then when you ejaculate, you feel completely drained. Is that what you're saying? And just to go into this a little bit, one of the benefit of the practices I've been talking about, where you draw the aroused sexual energy to your body during sex, one of the benefits of this is that you extract a lot of the energy from the semen. You extract that and you store it in your body. You bring it to the brain, the organs, wherever. And at that point, so after 20, 30 minutes or hours of doing this, if you do ejaculate, you lose significantly less energy because you've extracted a lot of that energy and charged yourself up with it, and the body's had some time to absorb it. How to do the microcosmic orbit. Check out my videos on YouTube. I have at least 2 videos of meditations to open the orbit, and I have a Qigong practice, so check that out as well. Okay, so I want to give you guys a technique to before I close up here. So this is a very basic technique that you can use to start experiencing basically a dry orgasm, a non-ejaculatory orgasm. I'm going to say this is a very sort of crude technique. It's completely physical, and you're still going to lose energy by using this technique, because it's a physical blocking of the ejaculation. And what often happens is the semen still goes into the bladder. But what I found, I used this technique in the beginning of my training, and it's very helpful because you don't lose all of your energy. You're able to keep a certain amount of the energy by using this technique. So this is called the $1 million point, and it's a pretty famous technique in the Taoist sex community. But basically what you do is you use your You use 3 fingers. So you press your first and third finger against the middle finger, and you press on the perineum. So for the man, between the testicles and the anus, there's this very soft point, and you press into that with these fingers. And if you press into that, you'll find this little like tube, right, where part of the urethra where the semen would travel through. So if you physically block this tube with your fingers, then the semen cannot travel through it, and so it will remain. Either it will remain in the prostate, or it will some of it goes into the bladder. So like I said, it's not perfect. It's crude, and it's not something you want to keep forever. You want to evolve to more advanced techniques, but in the beginning, it's very helpful for preventing energy loss. So yeah, that's all it is. You get to the point of ejaculation, and before you ejaculate, you press in the perineum. But not enough. Yeah, someone said sounds like it hurts. You don't press enough. Like, it shouldn't be painful, but just enough to like feel that tube there and close it off. So, and really, I would only use it as like a last resort sort of technique, because, like I said, it's crude and it's not the greatest technique. How is it safe that if the semen is going into the bladder? I mean, that's the thing, is it's not great, but it's a decent starting point. And like I said, it's more of a last resort technique. But I used it in the beginning. I never had any problems, and a lot of my teachers used it as well. But let me mention something here, very important. If you use this technique, you need to spend some time massaging that area, massaging the groin, massaging the perineum, because that fluid that's all built up and stuck there, it can become very stagnant, and you can have some discomfort from it. So massage the area after using this technique. So that's just a simple beginner's technique to use. Is there a difference between semen retention and a dry orgasm? So if you're having an orgasm and it ends up in the bladder, this is called a retrograde ejaculation. And this is often what happens with this technique I just shared with you. And this is not optimal because you're still losing the semen. And what happens is the body is able to reabsorb some of that. You usually don't lose all of the semen, but you still do lose it. So if you're ejaculating into the bladder, this is not an optimal technique. The big question, how to prevent wet dreams. Yeah, I talk about this a lot. The most helpful things I found are cold showers, or even better, ice baths. Whenever I can, I take an ice bath before going to bed to really compress the energy into the body. And meditation before sleep. Another biggest cause of wet dreams is having a lot of sexual desires during the day that are unfulfilled, and then that carries over to your dreams, and your body's like, okay, I've got all this suppressed sexual desire. Well, the conscious mind's asleep, so I'm going to release this now. And that's what happens. So you really have to get in better touch with your subconscious mind and learn to not have unfulfilled desires all the time. That's the biggest thing. Also, sleeping in a hot room, like if your body gets too hot at night, for whatever reason, it seems to ejaculate in sleep. So those are the most helpful methods I've found for preventing wet dreams. Do I have any book recommendations for full body orgasms for men? A great starting point is Taoist Secrets of Love by Montauk Chia. But this is exactly what I teach in my courses. I've got some different training videos on my website, jonathanwhitelifestyle.com, and my 6-week course, Multi-Orgasmic Man, which is exactly geared towards teaching you all the tools you need to be able to have these higher energetic orgasms. Because I tried to learn this stuff from books and I didn't have very good success. There's a lot of nuances. And the biggest thing that I wish someone had told me was that it's 100 times easier if you first learn to open your energy channels and have a basic method of moving energy through your body. So that's why I teach these things at the beginning, because it makes it 100 times easier to achieve mastery with the aroused sexual energy. Put ice on my balls? Yeah, you can put ice on your balls. It's actually very beneficial. It's been shown that when the testicles are cold, they actually produce more sperm. And so it's good for a number of levels, but will also help you prevent wet dreams if that's a concern. Okay, so just wrapping up, if there's any other questions, go ahead and send them my way. Can your aura influence people in a positive way? Yeah, definitely. Whatever energy you're putting out, everyone else is receiving. And if you're in a obviously if you're in a positive state and you're high energy, then other people are going to pick up on that. Or as if you're, living life in fear and stress and negative emotions, then other people will pick that up as well. You don't want to create more sperm because it will come out in a dream. Well, your body's always producing sperm, so there's not much you can do about that. Does creating a spiritual life through does creating and spiritual tie through masturbation the same as physical ties? Are you asking through a spiritual tie through masturbation? Is that what you're asking? Are you so what I'm getting from your question is if you so if you masturbate and you're thinking about someone, does that create a tie with that person? Is that what you're asking? Okay, yeah, that's the question. Okay, so yes, when you're whatever you think about, you're connecting with instantaneously. Our consciousness is faster than the speed of light. The minute you think about something, bam, it's there. And you have to be careful with this because, when you're masturbating, when you're aroused, if you're thinking about someone, you are connecting with them. And, if it's like someone you're involved with, someone you want to be involved with, if it's your partner or something, you're a distance from them, it's fine. But just be conscious of this, that you are sending your energy to that person on some level. So this goes into the whole thing about porn addiction. This is a huge worldwide epidemic, porn addiction. And all these men are just masturbating to porn, sending out all the sexual energy to this imaginary person in this video. And where's that energy going? Is it going into a black hole? Is it feeding some, astral creature? It's just this weird, complex situation. So be very mindful about where you're sending your energy, especially when you're having sexual activity, because you are sending that energy somewhere. Okay, guys, astral sex with partner. Yeah, that's much more advanced sort of stuff, the astral sex, but yeah, that is a possibility. You feel the energy, yes. But yeah, going to the topic, if you have a partner who's a distance away from you, then yes, you can use astral sex, so to speak, as a method of staying connected to them. Okay, guys, any last questions? Otherwise, I'm going to hop off here. Thanks, everyone, for joining me today. All right. Okay, guys. Wrapping it up. Thanks, everyone, for joining me. I'll be doing this again, next Wednesday, 5:30. So, all right, have a good day, guys. Thanks for joining me.